Hello and welcome back to our study through the book of Daniel. And as you see down below, we are going to be covering chapters 8 through 10 as we begin to move our way to the ending of Daniel. So, a lot of ground to cover, but as we head to these last chapters of Daniel, we begin to see just some of the more expansive visions that Daniel's going to have. And there's going to be less certainty in some of these things, and you'll see that as we go on. But let's pick up in Daniel chapter 8, as Daniel's going to be given a vision of a ram and a goat. So we pick up in Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. It says, in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar. Now, we saw before that we kind of jumped ahead to begin to look at Daniel living under now the Persian rule, but we've jumped back to pick back up some of the events that happened while Belshazzar of Babylon is still ruling, Nebuchadnezzar's son. So, as we look at the third year of Belshazzar, this is about the time that Cyrus has now conquered the Medes and he has united the empire to the Medo-Persian Empire, which will eventually and very soon be invading, as we already saw alluded to with the story of the handwriting on the wall. It was that very night that the Persian Empire invades Babylon and kills Belshazzar. So we're kind of going back a little bit before that happens. And a vision appeared to Daniel, picking back up in our passage. After that which appeared to me at the first, and I saw in the vision, and when I saw, I was in Susa, the capital, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision, and I was at the Ulai Canal. I raised my eyes, and I saw, behold, a ram standing on the bank of the canal. So the ram here is going to be indicative of the Medo-Persian Empire that is beginning to rise now. It had two horns. So again, we get the two horns, the two kingdoms brought together to one, the Medes and the Persians being brought together as the Persians are advancing. And both horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher one came up last. So Persia is the dominant force in the Medo-Persian Empire. So they are the higher horn on this ram. Verse 4, I saw the ram charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand before him, and there was no one who could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased and became great. So the Medo-Persian Empire is going to be advancing. It's going to be making its way towards Babylon, and it's going to conquer Babylon. Verse 5, as I was considering, behold, a male goat came from the west across the face of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. So this is going to be the Greek Empire that, after the Medo-Persian Empire rises to power and begins to spread, it's eventually, as you see here, that this goat is moving and it doesn't even touch the ground, indicating the speed with which it's kind of flying in its advance. That will be the Greek Empire. He came to the ram with the two horns, which I had seen standing on the bank of the canal, and he ran at him in his powerful wrath. I saw him come close to the ram, and he was enraged against him and struck the ram and broke his two horns. And the ram had no power to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled on him. And there was no one who could rescue the ram from his power. Then the goat became exceedingly great, but when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and instead of it, there came up four conspicuous horns toward the four winds of heaven. So we saw this come up in a vision before, as we see this succession of empires, that with the Greek Empire, it's going to be spearheaded by Alexander the Great. But after Alexander's death, it's not going to be passed on to an heir, but rather to four different generals. And so the Greek Empire is going to be divided up into four parts, each ruled over by one of the generals. Verse 9, Out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. So this is most likely indicative of Antiochus IV, and his reign is going to be spreading to what he identifies as the glorious land, more than likely Palestine, the people of Israel. Verse 10, it grew great, even to the host of heaven. And some of the host and some of the stars it threw down to the ground and trampled them. So this more than likely referring to Antiochus and the cruelty with which he will treat the Jewish people. Verse 11, it became great, even as great as the prince of the host. And the regular burnt offerings was taken away from him, and the place of his sanctuary was overthrown. So now we're beginning in the midst of the Greek Empire, the rise of the Roman Empire. We're going to see the desecration of the temple, which we're going to see the kind of the persecution of the Jewish people, the suppression of their religion, the Maccabean revolt that's going to take place. All of this in that 400 years of silence before Jesus is to be born. Verse 12, and a host will be given over to it together with the regular burnt offering because of transgression, and it will throw truth to the ground, and it will act and prosper. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to the one who spoke, for how long is the vision concerning the regular burnt offering, the transgression that makes desolate, and the giving over of the sanctuary and host to be trampled underfoot? And he said to me, for 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary shall be restored to its rightful state. So this is probably referring to a 6-year period from about 170 BC to 164 BC, culminating in eventually the Maccabean revolts. Now we're going to get kind of more of this in the interpretation here, starting at verse 15. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand, O son of man, that the vision is for the time of the end. So interestingly enough, Gabriel, we usually see him identified with events surrounding Jesus, announcing the coming of John the Baptist, announcing that Mary would conceive and have a child. So interesting that Gabriel is the messenger being utilized here. Verse 18, and when he had spoken to me, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But he touched me and made me stand up. He said, behold, I will make known to you what shall be at the latter end of the indignation, for it refers to the appointed time of the end. As for the ram that you saw with the 2 great horns, these are the kings of Media and Persia, and the goat is the king of Greece. And the great horn between his eyes is the first king, Alexander. As for the horn that was broken, in place of which 4 others arose, 4 kingdoms shall arise from his nation, but not with his power. And at the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their limit, a king of bold face, one who understands riddles, shall arise. His power shall be great, but not by his own power. He shall cause fearful destruction, and shall succeed in what he does, and destroy mighty men and the people who are the saints. By his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall reign. He shall even rise up against the prince of princes, and he shall be broken, but by no human hand. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. And I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision and did not understand it. So Daniel's still not clear because, again, he's being given a glimpse of things that are to come. And so a lot of this doesn't really make any sense to him. He's just doing his best to try to put the pieces together. But again, this is several times now, Daniel's being given this quick overview of these future events that are about to unfold. The Not only the rise of Babylon that he's living under now, but the rise of the Persian Empire that's going to conquer Babylon, and then the rise of the Greek Empire that's going to take out the Persians, and then the rise of the Roman Empire that's going to take out the Greek Empire. And it's under the Roman Empire that they are going to experience, the people of God will experience the most persecution, the most destruction, and the most death. So, chapter 9, it says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, by descent a Mede, who was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, perceived in the books the number of years that, according to the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet, must pass before the end of the desolations of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. So Daniel's counting down because in Jeremiah, God says that this Babylonian captivity will be 70 years. And so he's kind of calculating we've got to be getting pretty close to the end. And as you see here in verse 1, we are now under Belshazzar's gone. He's been killed. We're now under Darius, the Medo-Persian ruler. Verse 3, then I turned my face to the Lord God, seeking him by prayer and pleas for mercy with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. I prayed to the Lord my God and made confession, saying, O Lord, the great and awesome God, who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments, we have sinned and done wrong and acted wickedly and rebelled, turning aside from your commandments and rules. So it's interesting that as Daniel understands that the Babylonian captivity would last 70 years, even though that time is coming to an end, he doesn't take for granted that they're just going to be released. He is recognizing that the reason they're in this captivity was because of their sin. And so Daniel is spiritually saying, look, I'm not going to take for granted that we deserve to be restored. I am going to pray on behalf of my people, confess our sins, fasting and prayer, sackcloth and ashes. Verse 6, we have not listened to your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. To you, O Lord, belongs righteousness, but to us open shame. As at this day, to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to all Israel, those who are near and those who are far away, and all the lands to which you have driven them, because of the treachery that they have committed against you. To us, O Lord, belongs open shame, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness, for we have rebelled against him, and have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God by walking in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets. Again, recounting the history of Israel, their rebellion, that it's because of their hard-heartedness and their transgression that they were sent into captivity. Verse 11, all Israel has transgressed your law and turned aside, refusing to obey your voice. And the curse and oath that are written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, have been poured out upon us, because we have sinned against him. He has confirmed his words, which he spoke against us and against our rulers who ruled us, by bringing upon us great calamity. For under the whole heaven there has not been done anything like what has been done against Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this calamity has come upon us, yet we have not entreated the favor of the Lord our God, turning from our iniquities and gaining insight by your truth. Therefore the Lord has kept ready the calamity and has brought it upon us, for the Lord our God is righteous in all the works that he has done, and we have not obeyed his voice. And now, O Lord our God, who brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand and have made a name for yourself, as at this day we have sinned, we have done wickedly. Verse 16, O Lord, according to all your righteous acts, let your anger and your wrath turn away from your city Jerusalem, your holy hill, because for our sins and for the iniquity of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become a byword among all who are around us. Now therefore, O our God, listen to the prayer of your servant and to his pleas for mercy, and for your own sake, O Lord, make your face shine upon your sanctuary, which is desolate. O my God, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations and the city that is called by your name. For we do not present our pleas before you because of our righteousness, but because of your great mercy. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, pay attention and act. Delay not, for your own sake, my God, because your city and your people are called by your name. So again, Daniel is crying out to God that their sins would be forgiven, that his face would shine upon them again, that he would return them to Jerusalem and deliver them from captivity, recognizing that they don't deserve it, that it was their sin that got them in this mess, and they don't deserve to be restored. Even though God promised he would, he knows they don't deserve it, but asking God to be merciful to them. And so, verse 20, while I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my plea before the Lord my God for the holy hill of my God, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the first, came to me in swift flight at the time of the evening sacrifice. He made me understand, speaking with me, saying, O Daniel, I have now come out to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your pleas for mercy, a word went out, and I have come to tell it to you, for you are greatly loved. Therefore, consider the word and understand the vision. So now things get weird. Now things get a little less cut and dry. Verse 24, 70 weeks are decreed about your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin, and to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal both vision and prophet, and to anoint a most holy place. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the word to restore and build Jerusalem to the coming of an anointed one, a prince, there shall be 7 weeks. So I'll come back to this in a second. Then for 62 weeks it shall be built again with squares and moat, but in a troubled time. And after the 62 weeks, an anointed one shall be cut off and shall have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed, and he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall come one who makes desolate until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. Oh boy, that's a mouthful. So there's 4 different ways to look at this, and kind of using some notes here in the study Bible, it kind of pictures it very well. There's 4 different ways to look at what Gabriel just told Daniel. The first view is basically leading up to the Maccabean revolts. And this is what all of this is pointing to, where the temple gets cleansed because of the abomination of desolation under Antiochus, being the 70th week. The second view will be known as the dispensational view. And this is a view that a lot of evangelicals have embraced, where you've got 70 years of captivity, then you've got 7 weeks added to the 62 weeks, 483 years brings us to the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. And then we wait until the 70th week, being the 7 years of tribulation and the Antichrist before the return of Jesus. We have what's called the preterist view, which is all of this is stuff that happened in the past. And under this view, it would look to be leading up to the destruction of the temple after the ascension of Jesus, about 70 AD, the persecution under Nero. So in other words, the preterist view is everything that Gabriel just said has already happened for us. It's all in the past. Then we have a conventional view, a more futurist view, which all of this is, the only difference is it doesn't deal with the kind of same dispensational view of the end times, where the 70th week leads up to an abomination of desolation. That's the climax of it, and Jesus returns. So all of that to say that there's no one clear-cut way to look at this. I know sometimes we get we default to the dispensational understanding, and that is kind of common with the pre-tribulation rapture, the 7-year tribulation, and then the return of Jesus to establish his millennial reign. And understanding too that I kind of laid out in the Left Behind books, some of the Hal Lindsey books of the 1970s and into the 1980s. That is a very new theology, just about 200 years old, but that is not a historical understanding. Again, I'm going to come back to the point I said before with Revelation. The bottom line is Jesus wins. That is what all of this is building up to. Daniel's looking at, are we ever going to be restored? And Gabriel's giving this picture, I believe, that is beyond just getting them back to Jerusalem, but ultimately looking into the far future when not only will they be restored to Jerusalem, but Jerusalem's going to be restored under messianic rule and reign, which, yes, Jesus came, the Messiah came, but he didn't establish that kingdom. And I think Daniel's being given a glimpse that one day the Messiah is going to establish his kingdom. How does all that play out? Again, there's different ways to look at it. But the bottom line is Messiah Jesus is going to reign and establish his kingdom. That we know for sure. So let's turn with that in mind to chapter 10. Where it says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar. And the word was true, and it was a great conflict. And he understood the word, and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all, for the full 3 weeks. On the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist, his body like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision. But a great trembling fell upon them, and as they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. My radiant appearance was fearfully changed, and I retained no strength. Then I heard the sound of his words, and as I heard the sound of his words, I fell on my face in deep sleep with my face to the ground. So as Daniel's getting these dreams, they're deeply unsettling, deeply disturbing. He's unsure of exactly what they mean and what that means for the future. But look what happens in verse 10. And behold, the hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright. For now I have been sent to you. Now, let me get ahead of myself. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humble yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I've come because of your words. Now, we're going to see at the end of the chapter that the reason he's being given insight into this is that he fear not, that he'd have peace and be strong and of good courage. So I think that applies to us because a lot of times when we look at Revelation, we think about the end times, we think about the eschatology, the study of the end times, the things like the tribulation, we get very afraid. And that's not the point of it at all. Again, Revelation is written to encourage persecuted believers. Daniel's being given this vision not to scare him, but to encourage him, to take away his fears. So, verse 13, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left there with the kings of Persia. And I came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for the days yet to come. So, interesting little insight onto some spiritual warfare that is taking place as this angel is coming to try to give this encouragement to Daniel. Verse 15, when he had spoken to me according to these words, I turned my face toward the ground and was mute. And behold, one in the likeness of the children of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke. I said to him who stood before me, O my Lord, by reason of the vision, pains have come upon me, and I retain no strength. How can my Lord's servant talk with my Lord? For now no strength remains in me, and no breath is left in me. Again, one having the appearance of a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, O man greatly loved, fear not. Peace be with you. Be strong and of good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you know why I've come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and will go out. Behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these, except Michael, your prince. So, purposely leaving chapters 11 and 12 for our last look together next time. But I want us to, before we get into that, because that's going to get into, is it talking about the Antichrist, is it not, and all of that stuff. I think what we get in these chapters is that firm reminder when we look at days yet to come, as Daniel wrestles with what do these visions mean. The visions are given to him to encourage him. He is greatly loved by the Lord. He's been obedient throughout this captivity, even though he wasn't to blame for Israel's captivity. It fell upon the whole nation. So Daniel's being given encouragement. And that encouragement is they've endured captivity in Babylon. They've now come under Medo-Persian rule. They're going to see some difficult days ahead. The Greeks, things aren't going to be great with the Greeks. The Romans, things are going to be really bad under Roman rule. They obviously, all the events leading up to the Maccabean revolts, the hostilities that we see during the life of Jesus. We're going to see the rise of Emperor Nero. We're going to see the destruction of the temple. So all of these things to come. All Daniel's looking at is, hey, is it about time for us to go back to Jerusalem? He's being given a bigger picture to encourage him that no matter how difficult these days have been, no matter how difficult the days are yet to come, God is going to win. And I think that's the word for us here. We can get bogged down in the details of who does this represent? What does that represent? The point is the same, to encourage us. No matter what we're facing today, no matter what's coming in the days ahead, Jesus is going to win. No matter who rises to power, no matter who falls from power, Jesus is going to restore his kingdom. He is going to build his kingdom of righteousness. He is going to reign upon the earth forever and ever and ever. And we can take heart in that, be unshakable in that at the end of the day, Jesus is going to win. We can bank on that. We don't know all the details. Sometimes those details will be very scary. I think that's part of what happens with Revelation. We get pictures of all of these creatures, and we get a little freaked out. But again, every page of Revelation, read it through the filter of Jesus wins. We can apply that to Daniel. Everything that he's seeing is being shown to him to encourage him. He doesn't understand who Jesus is, but he's being shown your God is going to win. Don't lose heart. Stay strong. Be at peace. Your God is going to win. So how do we stay unshakable in uncertain times? How do we stay unshakable when it can feel like everything is against us? Remembering that Jesus wins. When all is said and done, Jesus wins. So I'm going to leave us at that because we're going to come back next time. Chapters 11 and 12 finish off the book of Daniel in probably the most expansive of visions that Daniel is going to get. So thanks for checking out this part, chapters 8 through 10, and we'll see you next time.